Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. Tonight we won't be having a project. We'll be talking about sharpening knives and angles. Are they worth it? Are they worth looking at? What are they? And do they really matter? So let's get right into it. What I've done here is I've drawn out 3 different sets of angles, because that's the first thing people normally ask is to what angle to sharpen a knife. But before we get to that, when we're saying we're sharpening a knife to an angle, what do we mean? Normally you'll get guys saying no, a 15 or a 25 or a 35 degree angle. Now that angle is actually only half of the total included angle. The 15, 25, 35, whatever it may be, whatever your preference is measured from the center line of the blade to the edge that you're sharpening it to. So a 15 degree sharpening angle actually has an enclosed angle of 30 degrees. 25 becomes 50, 35 becomes 70. This is drawn out to scale, so you can see a 35 degree angle is actually not that sharp, if I could call it that. I've divided it into 3 sections, which is basically the average angles that you'll be sharpening to. First of all is a 30 degree enclosed angle, which is a 15 degree sharpening angle, and this is for basically shaving. That is an extremely sharp edge if you can get to it. What you will need is you will need proper decent steel, or you won't be able to get that. Then you get to the 25 degree sharpening angle, 50 degrees enclosed angle, which is your normal utility angles. Well, utility sharpening for utility knives. And then you've got the 70 degree included angle, which is a 35 degree sharpening angle, and that's for chopping and so forth. Now, what does this mean? Well, why do we get there? How do we get there? The degree of usage of a knife depends on the steel much more than anything else. If you've got good quality steel, you're more than halfway there. So now that we've got this range, let's say in this direction is the sharpness. No, I'm lying. Let's call it this direction is the sharpness. So the smaller the included angle, the sharper your knife will be. That's plain straightforward if you've got good steel. But the flip side of that is how tough will your edge be. So let's call that toughness. The bigger the included angle, the tougher the edge will be, the longer lasting, so forth, so forth. So if you've got good steel, going for, and you're not butchering your knife, pardon the pun, then a 25 degree angle would suffice for normal general use. If you've got a pocket knife that cuts anything from, well, basically anything, like this one. This is a little carbon steel knife that I carry around every day. This thing cuts from paper to, well, you can call it. I normally tend for a blade like this to go a little bit more to the tougher side of it, if I can call it that. So this knife, for instance, is basically somewhere in the middle. That's that one. So your normal utility, 25 and up. Then what I've got here is my butcher's knife. This knife only cuts meat. End of story. There's nothing else that this knife is used for. So that one will typically, if you go accordingly, will typically be somewhere in the, call it 20-22 degree mark, because I'm not cutting anything else than meat with it. Then I've got here a deboning knife. Now this I know I'm going to cut bone with, so this one I'll rather keep on that side of it, because I know I'm going to cut bone, and I'll keep it at a bigger angle to make the blade just last longer. These 2 knives are extremely good grade steel, Swiss made, very, very nice. It's 2 of my favorite knives. So now that we've got the angles out of the way of what it should be, let's get on with it, and let's look at the next point, which is perceived sharpness. Now, perceived sharpness is you get a blade that cuts through anything, and it's lacquer, and it's good steel. Oh, bonus. Then you get a blade which is good steel, you sharpen it, and it's still not really there. Now, your perceived sharpness is a function of blade thickness. The thicker your blade, the less sharp it'll feel going through meat, for instance. As you can see, this knife has got a fairly thin blade. So blade thickness plays a part in there. Initial grind, you'll see this knife has got a very, very long, it's flat ground right up to the back edge. So you don't have that massive hollow grind that will actually, when whatever you are cutting, will actually scrape along this edge, and it'll feel like the knife is not as sharp. Then what you're sharpening with, progressively going down in grit sizes to get a smooth edge, will obviously make the knife feel sharper as well. Now, once again, if you've got your favorite sharpening stone, hopefully it's fairly fine grit. No need to sit hours and hours and hours to sharpen a knife. If you're a knife maker, by all means do it. So that's basically the three items that'll influence how sharp your knife feels versus how sharp it is the, let's call it, the surface of the ground edge, the blade thickness, and the grind. Now, I want knives to stay sharp as long as possible. I don't do surgery on stuff, so I've got no use for a knife in that section. Normally all my blades are somewhere in this section. That's what I sharpen knives to. Now what I've got here is just to show you the difference between, I've cut out two little wedges out of PVC. The smaller one is a 25-degree angle, the larger one is a 35-degree angle. So we're sitting there and there. Now if you look at it, it looks like if we put the two on top of each other. I don't know if you guys can focus there. Let me try and line them up properly. That's close enough. It looks like a massive angle difference between 25 and 30, but actually it's not. If you go and you take your normal pocket knife, I mean obviously a big blade is totally different story. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out the thickness of the blade, well, the width of the blade. Alright, there we've got it. Now we're going to line them up again. Start at the beginning. And there you can see on that top mark, that's the difference between a 25 and a 30-degree angle when sharpening your knife, which is not much. I mean, if you take that versus the difference in angle, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it there on the video, but it's not much. So if you're sharpening by hand and not using Lansky or some other fixture, I don't want to tell you you're full of shit, but you're full of shit. The main thing is consistency. Consistency is everything. If you look at these two knives, I don't sharpen with a sharpening stone. I use my normal steel. So what I would do is I'd get if you can get to a angle that is comfortable, sort of a 30-degree, 25, in this case 25, maybe a little bit less, that's the angle that I sharpen this knife to. So if you're comfortable on that, it's much more important than being consistent than it is getting an angle. What will happen is, if you're not consistent, you will get to the point where, let's say for instance that's now your primary grind. If you're not consistent, it's not really in the center, so we'll just hammer it out. You'll get a grind that does something like this. Now this is also exaggerated quite a lot, where at the end you basically have got no angle and it's starting from a very decent angle. So that'll be the sharpened portion there. The more consistent you are, if we can maybe draw a new one here, the more consistent you are, the better your edge will be. So that's my thing. I'm saying, I'm going out on the point where I'm saying that angle is not that important, consistency is important. I know a lot of guys will give me flack over it. Be my guest. I don't care. Consistency is what makes a knife sharp. This one, for instance, I'll sharp at a bit of a steeper angle, just a little bit steeper, in order to get to the point where this can cut along the bone and I don't have to sharpen it every 5 minutes. This then will give me also a much longer lasting edge on the knife. What else is there? Oh, I wanted to show you this. What I've done here is, let me just get it here. Those two small marks are 1 millimeter apart. So that's basically, if you look at the sharpened edge on this knife, it's even less than that. Now, once again, I'm going to line it up, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. Maybe I should color it in. I think that'll work, and you guys will be able to see what's happening there. The piece sticking out between those two little lines is the difference between a 25 and a 30-degree angle when sharpening your normal pocket knife size blades, which really isn't that. And so there you have it. Make the decision for yourself. I'm not that worried about angles. I'm worried about consistency when sharpening a knife. If you are sharpening a knife and using a stone of some sort and you can't, it takes some getting used to, but eventually you get to quite a steady hand where you can keep that angle solid. If you can't do that, maybe look at something like a Lansky or one of those that actually sets the angle. Once again, the angle is not the issue, the consistency. Lansky sharpener is probably my favorite sharpening tool in terms of getting consistency on an angle. This one was done with a Lansky sharpener. I don't know if you will be able to pick up the edge there. There we go. Super accurate. Best edges that you can basically find. But when sharpening a knife, there's also something that you have to keep in mind, is the direction of sharpening. So consistency is number one. Angle is far down the line. Consistency is number one. Now, every so often I see guys sharpening knives on the stone. Let's take, for instance, this is a stone, and they're sharpening their knives in this fashion. The problem I've got with that is now you've got your angle that you're sharpening to, and you're getting a decent, and your knife blade is going from there on out. And you're getting a decent angle. You're not rolling it over, rounding it off like that. But what happens is, and I've seen it happen how many times, especially on lower quality blades, the moment you pull away from the cutting direction, the moment that you pull away from the cutting direction, you actually create a little burr on the blade there. And now you sharpening in the other direction, and you bend that little burr over to there. So what eventually happens is that burr breaks off. And you're sitting with, if we zoom in on that, you've got the sharpened angle there, and the moment that burr breaks off, you've got a little weird thing happening there right on the edge. It's micro, but you feel it. My method of sharpening is, if I use a Lansky, if I use a oil stone, if I use a whetstone, doesn't matter, I always sharp in the direction of cutting. What happens is, when you've got that angle that you're sharpening to, and you are moving the blade in the direction of cutting, that little burr doesn't form. It breaks off, and you actually hone that point back to an edge. I get much sharper edges honing in the cutting direction than going against it. that is my, well, let's call it most important points is consistency, and then sharpening direction. That's basically what it comes down to. The angle, yes, it does matter. I'm not saying angle does not matter, but you are much more, you'll get much better results from a consistent cutting angle and sharpening in the direction of cutting. Once again, depending on the knife, these knives I use in my kitchen every so often, well, basically every day, so they get sharpened with this. This is a nice little pocket knife. I really enjoy it. It's a French knife. Really nice. Carbon steel. Only downfall on this, you can't put it in, leave it in water, it rusts till like you'd not believe. You can actually see the pitting where this one. I got blood on this one the first time and left it there, didn't wash it off. So high carbon steel, very good steel, but it rusts. I think that's where I'm going to call it for now. I think I've covered everything. I know a lot of guys are going to give me flack, but that's my take on it. Consistency, cutting direction, and only then angle becomes an issue. If you like the video, please press the like button, subscribe. If there's anything that you want to see, let me know, and we'll go through it. The next video will be actually on actual sharpening, and I'll show you a couple of methods to sharpen them that I use to sharpen knives, and we'll take it from there. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and please rate, comment, subscribe, and stay safe.